The underestimated species. Marcus Chen adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform as he walked through the crystalline corridors of the Galactic Defense Council headquarters. The massive space station orbited the neutral world of Nexus Prime, serving as the meeting place for the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Each step echoed softly against the translucent walls that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. After 3 years as Earth's military liaison, Marcus had grown accustomed to the strange architecture, but today felt different. Today, the very air seemed to vibrate with an underlying tension that made his skin crawl. The emergency session had been called at dawn. Galactic Standard Time. Marcus had received the coded message while reviewing routine patrol reports from the outer colonies. The message was brief but alarming. Ancient threat detected. All species required to attend immediate Defense Council meeting. Threat level, extinction. Marcus had seen threat assessments before, but never one that mentioned extinction. In his experience, the galactic community was prone to exaggeration. But something about this felt genuinely different. The council chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a scene of barely controlled chaos. Representatives from 47 different species filled the circular amphitheater, their voices creating a cacophony of alien languages. The translation implants in Marcus's ears worked overtime, converting the overlapping conversations into English words like ancient darkness and devourers kept repeating across multiple languages. Marcus found his assigned seat in the third ring from the bottom, a position that reflected humanity's relatively recent admission to the galactic community. Standing at the center of the chamber was High Counselor Renth of the Arcadian Republic, his 8-foot frame covered in the traditional robes of his office. The Arcadians were among the oldest spacefaring species, having achieved interstellar travel over 50,000 years ago. Their technology was so advanced that other species often mistook it for magic. When Renth spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. "Fellow beings," Renth began, his voice somehow reaching every corner of the vast chamber without amplification. "We face a threat that predates most of our civilizations. Long-range sensors have detected movement in the void sector, the region of space that has been empty for over 100,000 years. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. A dark region at the edge of the map began to pulse with ominous red light. Marcus leaned forward in his seat, studying the display with professional interest. The void sector was a region of space that appeared completely empty of stars, planets, or any form of matter. Most species avoided it, not because it was dangerous, but because there was simply nothing there worth exploring. The fact that something was moving in that emptiness sent a chill down Marcus's spine. Zektar of the Saurian Empire stood up from his position in the front row. The massive reptilian warrior was covered in natural armor plating that had been enhanced with technological implants. His species had built their civilization on the principles of honor, strength, and military prowess. They commanded one of the most powerful battle fleets in the galaxy, with ships that could reduce entire planets to rubble. When Zektar spoke, his voice carried the rumble of distant thunder. "High Counselor, the Saurian Empire has monitored the void sector for centuries. Our long-range sensors show massive energy signatures moving toward our galaxy. Whatever is coming, it's bigger than anything we've ever encountered." The reptilian warrior's tail lashed behind him, a sign of agitation that Marcus had learned to recognize. "Our preliminary analysis suggests a fleet of unprecedented size, perhaps millions of ships. A collective gasp rose from the assembled representatives. Marcus felt his own breath catch in his throat. Millions of ships represented a force larger than the combined fleets of all known species. Even the great Saurian Empire, with its legendary military might, possessed only a few thousand vessels capable of interstellar combat. From her position in the second ring, Lyra Voss activated her hover platform and rose to address the chamber. The Luminari were beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form millennia ago. They appeared as vaguely humanoid figures composed of shifting light and color. Their technological capabilities were beyond the understanding of most species, allowing them to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. When Lyra spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The Luminari Collective has accessed our oldest archives," she announced, her form flickering between blue and silver. "We found references to these beings in records that predate our own civilization. They are called the Devourers, and they are not from our galaxy. They are a parasitic species that consumes entire civilizations, stripping worlds of all biological matter before moving on to the next target." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus had studied galactic history extensively, but he had never heard of the Devourers. The fact that even the ancient Luminari had only fragmentary records suggested that these beings were older than recorded history. The silence stretched for several long moments before High Counselor Renth spoke again. "The Luminari archives indicate that the Devourers were responsible for the great extinction that occurred 100,000 years ago. Entire star systems went dark. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years simply vanished overnight. The holographic display changed, showing historical star charts with vast regions marked in red. We believe they consumed everything in their path before entering a form of hibernation in the void sector." Marcus raised his hand to request permission to speak. Several of the other representatives glanced in his direction with expressions ranging from mild curiosity to open dismissal. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for less than 2 centuries, making them newcomers by galactic standards. Many species viewed humans as primitives who had achieved space travel through luck rather than true advancement. High Counselor Renth nodded in Marcus's direction. "The human representative may speak." Marcus stood up, feeling the weight of dozens of alien gazes upon him. "High Counselor, Earth's deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual gravitational anomalies in the void sector over the past 6 months. We initially attributed them to unknown astronomical phenomena, but this information suggests they may be related to the Devourer movement." Zektar's laugh was a harsh, grating sound. "The humans think their primitive sensors can detect what our advanced systems have missed. Your species has been in space for less than 300 years. You have no experience with threats of this magnitude." The reptilian warrior's eyes glowed with amusement. "Perhaps it would be best if Earth focused on evacuating your colonies rather than attempting to contribute to the defense effort." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks, but he kept his voice steady. "The Saurian Empire's military prowess is legendary, but every species brings unique perspectives to galactic challenges. Human innovation has contributed to advances in quantum computing, biotechnology, and tactical analysis." "Tactical analysis." Zektar's voice dripped with condescension. "Your species has never faced a threat greater than regional conflicts on your own world. The Devourers destroyed civilizations that had perfected warfare across multiple galaxies. What could humans possibly contribute to such a battle?" Before Marcus could respond, Lyra Voss interjected with her ethereal voice. The Luminary Collective agrees that this threat requires the combined efforts of all species. However, we must be realistic about capabilities. The Devourers possess technology that transcends our understanding of physics. They can manipulate space-time itself, creating weapons that can destroy entire star systems with a single shot. High Counselor Renth raised one of his many hands for silence. The preliminary defense plan will focus on our most advanced military species. The Saurian Empire will coordinate fleet movements. The Luminary Collective will provide energy shields and quantum weapons. The Arcadian Republic will contribute our ancient knowledge and strategic planning capabilities. Marcus noticed that humanity wasn't mentioned in the defense plan. This wasn't entirely surprising, given that Earth's known military capabilities were limited compared to the galactic powers. Humanity's official fleet consisted of approximately 200 vessels, most of which were designed for exploration and light patrol duties rather than serious combat. However, Marcus knew something that the other representatives didn't. The meeting continued for several more hours, with various species pledging their resources to the defense effort. The Crystalline Consortium offered their manufacturing capabilities to produce weapons and ships. The Hive Collective promised to provide biological enhancements for existing military personnel. The Mechanical Union would contribute their advanced artificial intelligence systems for tactical coordination. Asterisk. As the session concluded, Marcus felt a familiar weight in his chest. Once again, humanity was being dismissed as irrelevant to major galactic affairs. The other species saw humans as well-meaning, but ultimately primitive beings who needed protection, rather than being capable of providing it. They had no idea that what they saw of human military capability was carefully calculated to maintain that exact impression. Marcus made his way back to the human embassy, a modest facility located in the station's diplomatic quarter. The building was smaller than most other species' embassies, reflecting Earth's perceived status in the galactic community. Inside, he found Commander Sarah Nova waiting for him in the secure briefing room. Sarah was a tall, athletic woman with steel-gray eyes and prematurely silver hair. She wore the black uniform of the Human Defense Corps, an organization that officially didn't exist. How did it go? Sarah asked as Marcus entered the room. The briefing room was equipped with the most advanced security systems that human science could produce, making it impossible for outside surveillance to penetrate. About as expected, Marcus replied, settling into a chair across from her. The Devourers are real, they're coming, and everyone thinks humanity should hide in the corner while the adults handle things. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy map from the council meeting. The threat is legitimate, Sarah. We're talking about a force that destroyed entire galactic civilizations. Sarah studied the display with professional interest. Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking the gravitational anomalies for 8 months. The analysis suggests a fleet of unprecedented size, possibly containing millions of vessels. She paused, her expression growing serious. The question is whether this is the right time to reveal what we've been building. Marcus nodded. For the past 50 years, humanity had been engaged in the most ambitious military development program in their history. While other species saw humans as technologically inferior, Earth scientists had been working on revolutionary advances in military technology. The projects were so classified that even most government officials didn't know they existed. The Prometheus fleet is ready for deployment, Sarah continued. All 2,000 ships have passed their final trials. The new weapon systems have exceeded all performance expectations. Our crews have been training for this exact scenario for over a decade. Marcus felt a surge of pride mixed with apprehension. The Prometheus fleet represented humanity's true military capability. Each ship was equipped with technology that would surprise even the advanced luminary. The weapon systems were based on principles that human scientists had developed independently, approaching problems from angles that other species had never considered. The timing couldn't be better, Marcus said. If we reveal our capabilities now, it will look like we're responding to the crisis rather than concealing our strength. The question is whether we can make enough of a difference to matter. Sarah smiled, and for the first time in the conversation, Marcus saw genuine confidence in her expression. Marcus, you've seen the test results. Our ships can do things that should be impossible according to current galactic understanding of physics. The Devourers may be ancient and powerful, but they've never faced human ingenuity. The secure communication system chimed, indicating an incoming priority message from Earth. Marcus activated the display and saw the face of Admiral Rodriguez, the highest-ranking officer in the official Earth fleet. His expression was grim but determined. Ambassador Chen, Commander Nova, I'm authorizing Protocol 7, Rodriguez announced. All Prometheus fleet units are to begin immediate deployment to staging areas. The masquerade is over. It's time for the galaxy to see what humanity is truly capable of. Marcus felt a chill of anticipation run down his spine. Protocol 7 was the code name for humanity's emergence as a true galactic military power. After decades of careful planning and preparation, the moment had finally arrived. As the message ended, Sarah turned to Marcus with a predatory smile. The Devourers are about to learn something that the galaxy forgot long ago. Never underestimate a species that has spent its entire history fighting for survival. Through the embassy's reinforced windows, Marcus could see the lights of alien ships moving through the station's docking bays. Each species was preparing for war in their own way, mobilizing fleets and weapon systems that had been perfected. Over millennia, they had no idea that humanity was about to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Devourers were coming, and they would face the combined might of the galactic community. But they would also face something they had never encountered before: human creativity, determination, and the kind of desperate innovation that only came from a species that had learned to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. Marcus smiled as he watched Sarah leave to coordinate the fleet deployment. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their refusal to accept defeat, no matter how impossible the odds might seem. The revelation that shook the galaxy. The attack came without warning during what should have been a routine patrol of the Kepler sector. Captain Thorin Blackstone was reviewing supply reports aboard the Saurian dreadnought Vengeance of Scales when the first distress signals began flooding the communication channels. The massive ship's bridge erupted into controlled chaos as officers scrambled to process the incoming data streams. Captain, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from 17 different star systems, reported Lieutenant Kess, her reptilian hands dancing across the holographic interface. All report the same thing: massive unknown vessels emerging from hyperspace and immediately opening fire on everything in their path. Thorin's scarred face hardened into a mask of determination. He had commanded Saurian vessels for over 30 years, fighting in 3 major conflicts and countless smaller engagements. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for the scope of what the sensors were showing. The tactical display revealed a nightmare scenario. Hundreds of dark, organic-looking ships materializing throughout the galaxy's outer rim territories. Analysis of the attacking vessels. Thorin demanded, his voice carrying the authority of a lifetime warrior. Unknown configuration, Captain, replied the ship's tactical officer. They appear to be biological in nature, possibly grown rather than built. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. The attacking ships are not responding to any communication attempts. Asterisk through the bridge's massive viewing screens, Thorin could see the distinctive energy signatures of Devourer vessels as they emerged from hyperspace. The ships were enormous, each one easily 3 times the size of his own dreadnought. Their surfaces were covered in what appeared to be organic armor plating that pulsed with veins of sickly green light. As he watched, one of the alien vessels extended what looked like feeding appendages toward a nearby space station. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Defense Council," announced the communications officer. "All available vessels are ordered to converge on the Centauri defense line. We're to form a unified fleet to stop the advance before it reaches the core worlds." Thorin nodded grimly. The Centauri defense line was a series of fortified positions that had been constructed over the past century to defend against external threats. It represented the combined military might of dozens of species, with weapons platforms capable of destroying entire fleets. If the Devourers could break through those defenses, nothing would stop them from reaching the galaxy's most populated systems. The Vengeance of Scales joined a fleet of over 3,000 vessels from across the galaxy. Saurian dreadnoughts flew alongside Luminary energy ships and Arcadian quantum destroyers. The combined fleet represented the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. As they approached the Centauri defense line, Thorin felt a surge of confidence. Surely no enemy, regardless of their ancient power, could stand against such overwhelming force. The battle began as the Devourer fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. There were easily 10,000 enemy vessels, each one radiating the same malevolent energy that had been detected in the outer rim attacks. The alien ships moved with an eerie coordination that suggested they were controlled by a single intelligence. As they advanced toward the defense line, they began to change. "Captain, the enemy vessels are transforming," reported the tactical officer, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're combining into larger configurations. Each group of 10 ships is merging into a single massive vessel." Thorin watched in horror as the Devourer fleet reconfigured itself. The process was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. The ships seemed to flow together like living liquid, their organic hulls merging seamlessly until they formed gigantic war machines the size of small moons. When the transformation was complete, the Devourer fleet had been reduced to 1,000 vessels, but each one was now capable of destroying entire star systems. "All ships, open fire," came the command from Fleet Admiral Vextar, the overall commander of the defense force. "Target the largest configurations first. Show these ancient parasites what modern warfare can accomplish." The combined fleet unleashed a barrage of energy weapons that would have been visible from neighboring star systems. Quantum torpedoes, plasma beams, and gravitational disruptors filled the space between the two fleets with deadly light. The attack was so intense that it created temporary tears in the fabric of space-time itself. For a moment, Thorin allowed himself to hope that the overwhelming firepower would be enough. The hope died as the energy barrage struck the Devourer fleet. Instead of exploding or being damaged, The enemy vessels simply absorbed the incoming attacks. Their organic hulls glowed brighter as they converted the weapon energy into power for their own systems. The most devastating attack in galactic history had served only to make the Devourers stronger. "Impossible," whispered the tactical officer. "They're feeding off our weapons fire. The energy is making them larger." The Devourer counterattack was swift and devastating. The massive vessels extended what looked like organic cannons and began firing streams of dark energy that seemed to consume light itself. When the beams struck the galactic fleet, ships simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris field, nothing. The vessels were simply gone, as if they had never existed at all. "Evasive maneuvers," Thorin shouted, but it was too late. The vengeance of Scales was caught in the edge of one of the dark energy beams. The ship's shields collapsed instantly, and Thorin watched in horror as the forward sections of his vessel began to dissolve. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically, but the damage was catastrophic. Across the battle space, the story was being repeated hundreds of times. The combined fleet, representing the pinnacle of galactic military power, was being destroyed by an enemy that seemed to exist outside the normal laws of physics. Ships that had been considered indestructible were being reduced to nothing in seconds. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Vextar," reported the communications officer. "The Admiral is ordering a full retreat. The defense line has been breached." Thorin felt a weight settle in his chest that had nothing to do with the ship's damaged artificial gravity. In 30 years of military service, he had never retreated from a battle. The Saurian Empire had never retreated from a battle. The fact that they were being forced to flee from an enemy they couldn't even damage was a humiliation that cut deeper than any physical wound. As the surviving ships of the Galactic Fleet began their withdrawal, Thorin's sensors detected new energy signatures approaching from the direction of Sol System. The readings were unusual, showing propulsion systems that didn't match any known technology. The ships appeared to be moving faster than should have been possible without entering hyperspace. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the approaching vessels," announced the communications officer. "They're identifying themselves as the Human Defense Corps, requesting permission to engage the enemy." Thorin's scarred face twisted into a bitter smile. The humans were approaching with their tiny fleet of primitive vessels, probably hoping to rescue survivors from the battlefield. It was a noble gesture, but ultimately futile. If the combined might of the galaxy's greatest military powers couldn't stop the Devourers, what could 200 human ships possibly accomplish? "Grant them permission," Thorin ordered. "At least their sacrifice will buy us time to evacuate the core worlds." The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace was unlike anything Thorin had ever seen. The ships were sleek and angular, with hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with a precision that suggested advanced artificial intelligence, but there was something organic about their formation patterns. As they approached the Devourer fleet, the human vessels began to change configuration. "Captain, the human ships are separating," reported the tactical officer. "Each vessel is deploying what appears to be smaller combat units. They're multiplying their numbers." Thorin watched in fascination as the human fleet revealed its true nature. What had appeared to be 200 ships was actually a force of over 2,000 modular vessels, each one capable of independent operation. The ships moved with a fluid grace that reminded him of a school of fish, constantly shifting position to avoid the Devourer's dark energy weapons. "Commander Sarah." Nova stood on the bridge of the flagship Prometheus, watching the tactical display with calm determination. The human fleet had been designed specifically for this moment, incorporating lessons learned from decades of studying galactic warfare. While other species had focused on building bigger and more powerful weapons, humanity had chosen a different path. "All ships, initiate Protocol Omega," Sarah commanded. "Show them what human ingenuity can accomplish." The human fleet began its attack with weapons that the Devourers had never encountered. Instead of energy beams or kinetic projectiles, the human ships fired what appeared to be small metallic spheres. The spheres moved slowly compared to conventional weapons, but they had an unusual property. They couldn't be absorbed by the Devourers' organic hulls. When the spheres made contact with the enemy vessels, they began to replicate. Each sphere split into dozens of smaller units, which then attached themselves to the Devourer ships' hulls. Within minutes, the entire enemy fleet was covered in millions of microscopic, human-designed nanobots. "Phase 2, commence," Sarah ordered. The nanobots began their programmed task. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourer vessels through brute force, they began to rewrite the organic ship's genetic code. The technology was based on humanity's advanced understanding of biotechnology, combined with concepts borrowed from computer programming. The nanobots were essentially biological viruses designed to infect and reprogram living technology. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Devourer vessels began to convulse as their organic systems were corrupted by the human nanobot. Ships that had been immune to the galaxy's most powerful weapons were now being destroyed from within by microscopic machines that rewrote their fundamental nature. "Sir, the enemy vessels are beginning to shut down," reported the tactical officer aboard the Vengeance of Scales. Thorin could barely believe what his sensors were showing him. The massive Devourer ships were literally dissolving as their organic components were reprogrammed to consume themselves. But the humans weren't finished. As the Devourer fleet began to collapse, Sarah Nova activated the final phase of humanity's battle plan. The human ships began to emit a strange harmonic frequency that seemed to resonate with the dying alien vessels. The frequency was based on research into quantum consciousness, designed to disrupt the hive mind that controlled the Devourer fleet. The effect was catastrophic for the ancient enemy. Without their collective intelligence to coordinate their actions, the remaining Devourer vessels became confused and disoriented. Some began firing on their own allies, while others simply shut down entirely. The fleet that had seemed invincible just minutes before was now in complete chaos. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel," Sarah ordered. The human fleet focused their attention on the largest Devourer ship, which sensors indicated was the source of the hive mind's control signals. The combined assault of nanobots and harmonic disruption finally penetrated the creature's defenses. The death of the Devourer Queen sent shockwaves through the remaining fleet. Without their controlling intelligence, the organic vessels began to shut down one by one. Within an hour, the ancient threat that had destroyed civilizations across multiple galaxies was nothing more than lifeless organic matter drifting through space. The aftermath of the battle was a moment of stunned silence across the galaxy. The combined fleet that had been so easily defeated watched in amazement as the human vessels began recovery operations. The same species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers had accomplished what the galaxy's greatest military powers could not. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship," reported the communications officer aboard the Vengeance of Scales. "Commander Nova is requesting a meeting with all fleet commanders." Thorin found himself in the unprecedented position of accepting orders from a human officer. The irony wasn't lost on him that the species he had dismissed as militarily insignificant was now the savior of the galaxy. As he prepared to transport to the human flagship, he reflected on the lessons of the day. Humanity had won the battle not through superior firepower or advanced energy weapons, but through creativity and innovation. They had approached the problem from angles that other species had never considered, combining biotechnology with quantum physics to create weapons that were perfectly suited to their enemies' weaknesses. The meeting aboard the Prometheus was unlike any military conference Thorin had ever attended. The human ship's briefing room was smaller and more utilitarian than the grand chambers of Saurian vessels, but it radiated an efficiency that spoke to humanity's practical nature. Commander Nova stood at the head of the table, her presence commanding despite her relatively small stature. Asterisk. The Devourer threat has been neutralized, she began, her voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who had just accomplished the impossible. However, our analysis suggests that this was only an advance force. The main Devourer fleet is still dormant in the Void sector, and our actions may have awakened them. The assembled alien commanders exchanged worried glances. If what they had just witnessed was only a preview of the true threat, then the galaxy faced a crisis of unprecedented proportions. The Human Defense Corps is prepared to share our military technology with all galactic species, Sarah continued. The nanobotic systems and harmonic disruptors can be adapted for use by your fleets. Together, we can build a defense force capable of stopping the Devourers permanently. Thorin felt a fundamental shift in his understanding of the galactic order. For centuries, the Saurian Empire had been one of the dominant military powers, respected and feared throughout the galaxy. Now, he found himself looking to humanity for leadership in the greatest crisis their civilization had ever faced. "Commander Nova," he said, his voice carrying a respect that would have been unthinkable just hours before. "The Saurian Empire requests permission to join the Human Defense Corps as a junior partner. We have much to learn from your methods." Similar statements came from representatives of every major species. The Luminari offered to share their energy manipulation technology. The Arcadians provided access to their ancient archives. Even the proud crystalline consortium requested to join the human-led alliance. As the meeting concluded, Thorin realized that the galaxy had been fundamentally changed by the day's events. Humanity had emerged from the shadows as the new dominant power, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the demonstration of capabilities that no one had imagined possible. The Devourers would return. But when they did, they would face a galaxy united under human leadership and equipped with technology that combined the best innovations of dozens of species. The ancient parasites had awakened something in the galactic community that they couldn't have anticipated. The human capacity to turn any challenge into an opportunity for growth. Marcus Chen watched the fleet departures from the observation the deck of the Galactic Defense Council station. Ships from every major species were heading back to their home worlds, carrying with them the plans for human nanobotic weapons and harmonic disruptors. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity had finally taken its place as a true galactic power. The age of human dominance had begun, not through war or conquest, but through the demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. The Devourers had intended to consume the galaxy, but instead they had given humanity the opportunity to prove that innovation and creativity could triumph over even the most ancient evil.